One of the main drivers of glycation is actually lipid peroxides, so damaged fats that we can have inside our tissues, really anywhere in our bodies, in our arteries, in your liver, anywhere. Those are primary drivers of glycation as well, without any sugar being involved. So, that I think is not often considered. Another one would actually be ketones. So, of course, on a ketogenic diet, we're thinking no sugar, which on one hand isn't even true, because we know you can still have quite a bit of blood sugar and even higher A1C values on a low-carb diet. But there's also the fact that ketones themselves, and specifically acetone, is a direct precursor to something called methylglyoxal. And methylglyoxal is thousands of times more glycating than glucose is, or fructose. And so that's going to be a much greater driver of glycation than something like glucose. And so the picture ends up becoming a lot more complex, and it's one that I think is worth digging into. But this overarching assumption that eating more carbs equals more glycation is totally missing all of the other factors that drive glycation and age production, advanced glycation end products. And then they're also missing the other side of the equation, which is the production of something like any glycation product, but if we're saying ages, the equation doesn't end there. There's also the clearance of those and the antioxidant systems, and specifically glutathione, that's really important for clearing out those ages and basically detoxifying them. And that whole side of the equation is very much supported by carbohydrates and by insulin, which both stimulate the production and the regeneration of glutathione. So with all those things being said, it's nowhere near as simple as we look in the literature and we see more advanced glycation end products, the real kind of bad guys, on a higher carb diet. That literature is not there at all in humans. If anything, really the only literature that we see that's looking at those sorts of end products in humans tend to show that low carb diets are much more likely to be increasing glycation. There's studies showing increased methylglyoxal on ketogenic diets, and the more ketogenic it is, the more methylglyoxal is produced, presumably because of the acetone that gets produced. And there's also studies showing increased lipid peroxidation on low carb diets as well, which is going to be a primary precursor to ages. So I really think it's something where we're zooming in on one really small mechanism in a much larger web, and then we end up with these sorts of assumptions.